I am here with Espada. Espada, how are we doing? Welcome to the Sae Bae cast.
Amazing, doing amazing. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I guess I'll give a brief little history, a little lore of how we came to this conversation right now, which is I was recommended a video titled OSRS Isn't What You Think It Is. Of course, it's a little clickbaity, but I was blown away by the video. So I have it pulled up here for those that have not watched the video. I imagine most of my audience probably has not seen it, although it did get a lot of views. And this is only your second video on the channel. So yeah, I will say right now, before if people do have some time, I would highly recommend watching his video first and then coming back to this conversation, because we are going to be talking about it. But it is fascinating, and regardless if you watch it or not, I think you'll still appreciate this conversation. So, Espada, let's get a brief history, I guess, of who you are, and I guess before we really kind of touch on the video and how you came up with the concept of the video, let's get a little history of who you are as like a player and when you started into RuneScape.
Oh yeah, right. I think there's a standard way people do this, right? Am I right? Like they start like it's a group support or something. It's like I've been playing RuneScape for an X amount of time. I started back in 05, 07. About me, I think I'm the embodiment of the meme. You know, you never quit RuneScape. You just AFK or take breaks, and that's exactly how my relationship with the game was and actually currently is. So I play on and off, I take long breaks, and I cancel my membership and I renew it, and you know, the usual stuff people do. It was quite an interesting story because I grew up poor and I had no computer at my house, no internet, no nothing. So I discovered RuneScape through friends who were playing at the library, and back then people were sharing accounts, and I had no way of creating an account or didn't understand how to do it because I was just a little kid in Europe, and I knew no English. I was like, I don't know, 7, 8 years old, and yeah, that was how I came into contact with RuneScape. Back then, people used to share accounts and steal accounts a lot, and that was what I did. I stole some of one of the most impressive accounts of my friend group, and no one knew it was me. A level 40-something free-to-play account, so nothing impressive by today's standards, but you know, as a little kid, that was impressive.
Beyond that, did you start old school at the beginning of release, or were you playing EOC at all?
Well, kind of. I think I kept doing the on and off thing, you know, play for a couple of months, stop for a couple of months, play for a year, stop for a couple of months. And just right before the EOC, I left the game because it was getting really crazy, like extend multipliers on damage and health, and that was already pretty crazy. The graphics were unrecognizable, so I quit for a private server.
Interesting. Do you are you comfortable sharing the name of the private server? I wouldn't know them. I never played them, but is it like a big one or just?
There were quite a lot, and there was one who is, I think, still is active. I'm not sure about how do you pronounce the name, but it was called Scape. And it started with the old graphics, like the ones from early 2000s, and now I think it's like pre-EOC or even EOC graphics, but still the same vibe. And it's pretty cool. And from there, I played a bunch of private servers, and I got myself into making one, actually. So, you know, learning all the code stuff and assets and whatnot, and running the thing, hosting it. Yeah, fun times.
Wow, that is impressive. Okay, so you got a pretty deep history with this. I wasn't quite sure based on, I think I watched your video on sailing, and I wasn't quite sure what your like entire experience was with the game. So what has been your experience with old school then?
All right, I almost forgot to talk about old school. I got back into old school, I think, 1 year after the launch or something like that. I think there was still no grand exchange, or I think there was no grand exchange back then. And the party hats used to still be a hype item or something like that. I'm not sure if that was exactly like that, but yeah, those times, maybe 1 year into the release.
Okay. And then when did you first quit? Was it like a week after that?
Yeah, basically, because I did not understand a lot of things that were happening. I was not finding myself inside the game. It was a little bit different. I didn't understand why, and I came back to basically private servers and kept doing that.
Mm.
Just trying to do that, not hosting, just trying to create the perfect RuneScape, I guess.
Interesting.
And that was like on and off for a lot of time. I did a bunch of side quests in real life, and I kept coming back to old school RuneScape. It was like my cozy pixelated home in a way.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, not this isn't about myself, but it just throws me back to that time of early old school. I mean, I started 2.5 years in, so it was around September-ish of 2015. And I swear, for the first week of playing it, I felt like an outsider. I didn't feel like I was a part of the game, like the ecosystem or anything. I just felt like I was sort of an outside observer, just testing the waters to see if I liked it. And then something happened a week in where I just got totally hooked. And I felt like if I had not played that day, I would have just quit the game and probably never returned to it. It was some like click that happened on like, I don't know, within that first week of just all of a sudden the addiction kind of just sunk its teeth into me. And I was like, okay, I am hooked. And it was like from there on, I've been playing ever since. So, yeah.
Well, that's absolutely true. You know, RuneScape has that charm. It has that something that pulls you in. And the same happened to me like I think six months ago when I came back to RuneScape and sailing was just out, and I was just like having that same experience that you just told about, testing the waters and seeing how it is. Like, is it the same game or not? And just maybe a couple hours in, I was like, yeah, dude, I'm back. I'm going to make content. I'm making a video about this. And I did.
That's awesome. Okay. So now that we have a little bit of a history of who you are, I want to start getting into this meat and potatoes of this video that you produced. And I was blown away. I mean, I feel like most of the time, if I see a video essay type thing, I feel like I'm bracing myself to just hear something that I've already heard before, just kind of repackaged, and I'm just not going to be impressed. But your video truly impressed me because you go deep into the lore of this game and honestly a lot of the in-game history, so like the actual stories that are unfolding and us being in, you know, the certain ages. I think what we're in the 5th age, is that correct? I don't even know the lore very well, but in RuneScape
Yeah, we are in the 5th age.
and so we passed like the god wars and stuff, and now we're in this sort of godless time. And there were a lot of elements of it that really, I think, you could make separate videos on. It would go super, super deep. I mean, just the fact that you are very clearly displaying certain, you know, RuneScape civilizations like the gnome stronghold and like the elves and like the dwarves and what they did, and what they still continue to do, even though the gods are gone. Like they're still practicing the same sort of protection and the defenses and gearing up for war just in case, you know, something were to happen. And it got me thinking, obviously, about the real world, because there's obviously a ton of similarities to it. But then you continue onward and start really kind of talking about the game and what the game should be. So that was like the sort of turning point in the video where I thought you were going to go a different direction, and then you turned it back toward like what this game's identity should be and what it should remain, because we actually do have a very, very solid identity with this game, and that can be lost. And you bring up examples of other MMOs that sort of start turning toward insane power creep and almost like, as you put it, like god status in the game, where it can completely trivialize everything prior to it, and it will destroy a game. And it'll destroy the identity of a game. You can still have a game that goes that direction, but it will not be like old school at all. So anyway, very long-winded right there, but I guess I want to kind of start with what gave you the concept of this video? Like, how did it arise? Why did you think to make this type of video? And do you normally just think this deeply about the game and the game's lore?
Well, not really, but also yes. Even when I don't play RuneScape, I still watch videos about it, and whether it's Colonello, whether it's Fury Wise, or whoever makes documentary videos or kind of philosophical videos, I watch them and I think about the game. I think about what I loved about the game, but it's not really that conscious to a point of making a video. And this time it was. I just watched, I think, a couple of people who I shouted out in the video. Wizard's Mind Bomb, he makes amazing lore videos, and that like sparked something in me, and I started connecting a lot of dots, and it was just the video was writing itself by its own. Like uh, I had this approach, like you thought you understood this world, but you never really looked at it. And I started looking at singular things, like you said, the gnomes, the dwarves. Uh, yeah, so I started just to do that. Like you look at the gnomes, and they fit pretty well in a basic fantasy RPG, pretty usual stuff, iconic creatures to have in a game. The same for dwarves and such. But if you think about it, in RuneScape, they have uh, a role in it. They are simply the way we are, and they have this quirky way of speaking. They have built their cities like in tree houses. It makes even sense that they have an agility course in their in their city, because it's made in this thematic way, but it goes so much deeper and deeper than that, because there's history. And I tried to look up the history of that, and I didn't really go too much deep into lore. It was just like a bird's eye view for people to like, look, this is the game you've been playing. You thought about efficiency. It was PVM Scape for you. It was AHP Scape for you. It was whatever RuneScape for you, but you didn't look at what actually this game is. You don't know in which sort of world you are. And that was really the spark for that video. And going into the fifth age, I think that's the biggest difference between old school RuneScape and RuneScape 3, because RuneScape 3 went so much past the fifth age. They escalated the game so much with the storyline. Not that it's bad by any means, but it was escalated quite a bit. And for 13 years, old school RuneScape stayed in the fifth age, and that is really fascinating, because the game was not, I guess, vertically progressing with the lore. It did progress a little bit, but it was expanding, and I love what the devs did with maybe Great Corrend or Warlamore, and I'm excited to see what we're going to do with maybe some continents to the east, because that is really what makes this game.
Interesting.
I don't know how to put it, but yeah, this was my way of analyzing it.
Yeah, and I thought it was beautifully analyzed, especially in the video, just connecting all these dots. Do you think old school? Well, let me phrase it this way: do you think there's a fear of progressing this game into the sixth age or bringing the gods back? Is it? Do you think it's more fear focused by the team? Do you think they're even aware of it, or do you think there is an intention to staying where we are because it is working? And do you think this can last indefinitely?
Well, I'm not sure if they are aware of it. And matter of fact, this is like not a truth. Well, this is just a reframe that I did for myself, and I wanted to share that. That's why content on YouTube exists. Everyone's have their own say, and I did that. I got some backlash in the comments. I had a lot of people who resonated with it and like appreciated my point of view about this thing. But yeah, I'm not sure if they are aware of that, and I hope that they watch my video and become aware of that, because unknowingly they were doing it. They are still doing it. And I think maybe the latest content kind of gets closer and closer to that, I guess, edge. Maybe TOA is kind of close to it, but not so much.
Yeah, and what do you think it is about? I mean, you mentioned TOA. Do you think it's the sheer power creep? I mean, people do say, especially if you're a main account that can just buy a Shadow of Tumakin from the Grand Exchange, that weapon is a decimator. It feels like you're wielding the power of God. Like, it's so extreme. And I wonder, do you think a lot of this sort of balancing and keeping ourselves quote unquote mortal in this realm, do you think that power creep is the ultimate thing that we need to watch out for, or is it more just lore? Like, would it be a simple game update that kind of transcends us into the next age that would be the actual thing that like sort of destroys the identity? Or do you think it is just sort of the power creep that's almost feels inevitable?
I think these things go hand in hand, because if you advance too much with lore, you will allow yourself to power creep more. If you lock in yourself into a thing like the fifth age, you will look at the existent content more carefully and see if you're going forward too much or expanding too much. But it's not inherently a bad thing.
Would it?
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Well, I guess I mean, for old school, it almost feels like it would be a bad thing. I guess it's all subjective at the end of the day, but it feels like our game, there's a reason why the player count is increasing and is extremely popular at the moment. I feel like that's kind of where I come back down to. Is it just a matter of fear of just not progressing the game like RuneScape 3 did? Just seeing like how like the player base just plummeted. Do you think it's just sort of how autistic our community is, that we just don't want change? Because there are actual people in this community that would love very, very, very powerful weapons and gear that really just makes you feel immortal in a lot of ways. And then they'd obviously want the bosses to ramp up as well with difficulty. So not everything's trivial, but like you say in the video, as soon as you become a god on earth with all these insane weapons and abilities and power, everything, those small villages that you mentioned and the local stories, they all diminish in size, and it just feels like you are now destroying part of the world in order to increase your power and your sort of like lust for like more and more power, in a weird, sort of like lore based way. I just wonder, like, is that the way to go? Because there obviously that is a route, and that's a route that a lot of other games take, and I know RS3 has taken a similar route, but it feels like old school really needs to resist that.
Yeah, I agree with that, and there's a precedent for that, RuneScape 3. And yeah, I think it should not progress too much or too crazy lore wise, and that will box themselves into making better content, because it's so easy once you like cross that invisible wall or invisible barrier. You just allow yourself to go crazier and crazier. I think I already mentioned this, but I think there's a big fear of that, and people cannot just put that into words. And that was one of the points that I was trying to make in my video. I wanted to make people aware of where we are with the game, what this world is, how all of it happened, and both like IRL wise and game wise, like inside the game. Because a lot of stuff happened in RuneScape 3, and it is what it is right now. It's not a bad game, but old school RuneScape is more successful. There's a reason for that. And in the end, I say that the reason for that is because the community and the devs have worked for a long time hand in hand, and they kept this masterpiece of a game working for a lot of years, despite it being this old and clunky in some ways, in many ways. I don't know if I talked about what you wanted me to talk
No,
about.
that was wonderful. I'm really gonna just be kind of like touching on a bunch of different little things that are popping in my head, and I have them written down.
Yeah,
But
sure.
what are your thoughts on the polling system? So you mentioned toward the end of the video, this game is shaped by the community. We have a sort of tug and pull with the developers and the community to sort of steer the ship in a it is sort of a brute force way, but at the same time, it has obviously managed to work for the last 13 years of just this
Yeah.
sort of give and take. And I wonder how important is the polling system? And I'm not sure because you have taken breaks with this game. If you're aware, I imagine you are, but the polling threshold went, or sorry, the polling pass threshold went from 75% to 70%. And I wonder, did you have an issue with that? I mean, now we're at just the 70% threshold, which is still a super majority, and it still accounts for what the vast majority of the players do want in the game. But there's also been discussion, and I've been part of these discussions of people saying the polling system just feels outdated, and it feels like the team already knows what the game should be, and we can just offer advice or just our own sort of feedback. But ultimately, there's some players that really just want the team to be able to have a lot more freedom, like kind of unshackle the reins that are kind of like tying them down to making content feel more limited. And some people just want the developers to have ultimate creative freedom where they're not being sort of shackled down by the community's vote.
Yeah. So I have a story about this or on this and how this shapes my way of seeing things. First of all, I think the polling system is so bizarre, but it's also so fascinating. And I'm really fascinated by how OSRS devs are going about it, about the content updates and going with the community about those things. There's this like weird relationship where people get to say about what's coming into the game or not. And this is for a studio like Jagex, which is quite large now, is not common at all, even for smaller studios. And here's the story I was talking about. Uh, Something like 5 years ago, I worked in a gaming studio. It was a small indie startup. And we had a small community. We were community funded, and we were making this game. It was a MOBA game, and people were really passionate about it. We had a couple thousand initially, and it escalated a little bit, and that was a cool time. And we were communicating a lot with the community, and we were like sub 20 people, sub 20 devs. There was no management. The project manager was also one of the main programmers. So it was a really tight relationship between all of us devs and the community. But we didn't have this kind of relationship with the community where we had a strong voice of what needs to be coming into the game or the changes. While in this crazy escalated community and company, the relationship is so much closer. Like Jagex is getting told by people what we should do or should not do. And if the poll does not pass, they have invested hundreds of hours developing a concept or something, and it might not pass, and they should scrap it. And that's like the most bizarre thing, but it's also so fascinating because that's what's making the game alive. And I don't have any issue with the poll percentages and whatnot, because I'm so fascinated by the concept itself. It's so crazy that people have a voice on this.
Yeah. And it's something I would hate to lose. It really does feel. I mean, I'm definitely in a more privileged position than most of the community, where I feel like I do have an audience that's listening to my takes on the game, which is very. It's fun. It's a. I mean, I just love talking about the game. I've been super passionate about it for basically my whole life. Especially since 2015. So last decade specifically, I've been very, very like outspoken about my thoughts on the game and how I want to see the game in the future. And knowing that there actually is like my influence does have an effect on the game's trajectory, it keeps me actually more passionate about it. It's like it's sort of like that um, feedback loop of like the more passionate and the more I feel like I'm being listened to. And again, it's more like I will attach myself to the majority of some people's opinions if they feel like the right way to go. Like I'm not gonna die on a certain hill for a certain game update where nobody else agrees with it, because it ultimately is a community run game, and I feel like there's no like right or wrong answer. It's really just what is the most practical uh, way forward, basically, that's going to keep the game healthy and fun. So it's just cool though that we're able to sort of share these ideas, collaborate, and eventually sort of collide on one good idea for the game, and that keeps people more and more invested in talking about the game and keeping it healthy. And I think in my opinion, removing a polling system would all of a sudden sort of create this void where you don't feel like you're being heard as much. And I feel like that can eventually make players lose that passion to even care about the game's trajectory. And I think that would be a really bad road to go down at this point.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to remove the polling system. It's such a great system. It's such a cool thing to have, and yeah, it's what keeps people invested. We are all grown men and women, and we are still passionate about this game so many years later. Not even uh 13 years or whatever. For some people like me, it was decades, not 1 decade, maybe 2 decades. Not 3, because old school RuneScape is not that old, or RuneScape itself probably is not that old. But yeah, I wouldn't want that system to be gone. I think it's good to trust the devs, but we are also in a great position to give devs more insight, because the more the advisors, the better the outcome, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Do you feel like some of the time that can be what's the word for it? Just sort of like you're put into a state of paralysis as a developer, knowing you can't please everybody, and the fact that you're listening to thousands or hundreds of thousands of voices that are just saying how they want the game. And the game is also very, very divided. I mean, there's so many different camps. You got the Iron Men folk and the UIM and the skillers and the PVMers and the super, super high level PVMers and the role players and the PKers. And it just feels like you have this mishmash, and any game update affects everybody to some degree. And I wonder, do you think that that sort of potential state of paralysis that devs go through, where they almost feel like they can't add anything because it's going to negatively affect somebody, that sort of limits creative freedom? Or do you think that's just a good boundary to have?
Well, first of all, it's not a potential thing; it's an absolutely true thing, and I can say that myself, have been a dev. And yeah, you get the paralysis even when you don't give an option for people to decide on what needs to be coming, even with small things, imbalancing, like just changing value on an item. So think about a big company who gets to make a massive game like old school RuneScape. They have paralysis just at reading Twitter, I believe, or looking at Reddit, without anyone having a voice about. They just expressing their opinions, and the people are expressing their opinions, and devs get paralysis on that. I think that's such a real thing, but it's also a really good boundary.
Yeah, I think it has to be. I think as a developer, you have to just kind of listen to what you believe the game, how the game should go, and you can't be too paralyzed by what everybody's saying, because you would literally never get anything done. So I think I'm always impressed by the developing team. I mean, they have just been so good, I feel like, with carefully balancing updates. And I obviously will have some gripes on some updates, and some of the stuff doesn't feel as polished, but ultimately I'm like, this game is thriving. So I really, as much as I have complaints, my overall complaint, I don't really have a big fat complaint, because the game is in a state that I enjoy and I'm still loving. So that is
Well, are you saying that you're not gonna complain about rune blade bodies and at 99 smithing?
Oh, I complain about that. In fact, actually, it's funny that you bring that up, because I actually do have a video planned where I'll be breaking down at least my potential idea for a smithing rework, because I feel like there is this divide in the community of like the people that just don't want to even touch it because they're just not skilling folk and they just want to do their PVM stuff, and they feel like any time allocated to skilling is just a waste of time. But then you got the people that are on the very extreme side of like they want everything to be clamped down to like you can start smelting rune at level 40 smithing, which is literally, for those that don't understand XP rates, that's less than, I think that's what, like 40,000 total XP of smithing XP. Like that's like doing a knight sword quest and then doing like one sword at Giant's Foundry, and then you can start making runite. I'm like, this is, in my view, it's just absolutely not the way forward. And the people's argument for the most part is just, well, if you can wield it at level 40, you should be able to smith it at level 40. And I'm like, can you wear a shirt? Can you also tailor that shirt at the same level? It's just, it doesn't feel like that's a good reason to squish things down as much. Spoiler, my video is going to be more of a doubling. So it's like whatever can be wielded, like those classic metals can be wielded at double the level. So like Addy at level 30, when you can wield it, that'll be level 60 to smith. Runite would be level 80. Mithril will be level 40. So it's just, it just feels like there's still a grind to be had. I don't think level 80 smithing. Well, first of all, level 80 smithing compared to level 99 is a literally over an 11 mil XP difference. So it is a huge squish down realistically. It just doesn't seem like it if you're not paying attention to the actual XP. But I do feel like getting to level 80 is a decent grind for the best classic metal to be able to smith. Anyway, I know we're not going to take the huge deep dive into smithing unless you want to, but yeah, I do
I think this is not one of your panels with a lot of agreeers or disagreeers, so I wouldn't go that route. But if you want to, we can. I don't have too much to say about that because I'm not a skilling person or a PVM person, nor a PvP person. I'm just enjoying the world, the nostalgia. The most time I'm online, I'm just recording footage for the next video, and it takes a lot of time to do that. But I still enjoy looking at the game and thinking about it.
Well,
and I have my own opinions.
Let me get your take on this then. Still regarding smithing, do you feel like there would be something lost if there was a massive smithing overhaul?
Well, no. I think skilling in itself needs a huge rebalance and a rework potentially. I don't like when they add band-aids. Minigames are cool, but I wouldn't make the whole skill work just with minigames, or make it make sense with minigames, but make it actually useful. So utility stuff, fun stuff, make the thing that impacts the game in the end. So I wouldn't mind if they did that. I don't really care if they change everything. Like if they made Runite at 50 smithing and 50 mining, as long as they balance the XP rates, I'm fine with it.
I am worried because, again, if we were to theoretically create a game from the ground up, which I talked to Trey Blob, who is one of my co-hosts on a little like side project that I was doing for the Sae Bae cast, Say More, and we started talking about a sort of like sci-fi themed RuneScape, and we started getting into the thick of it, of like how the game would look. And it really is a very refreshing sort of thought experiment to go down, of just thinking of how the game could be properly balanced, because we really are playing patchscape, where everything is just another patch on top of a patch on top of a patch. And if we really did have the power and the time and the resources to just create a game that feels very, very balanced, well, one, I wonder, would we be losing anything? I do feel like that wouldn't be the road to take, simply because there are hundreds of thousands probably of players that return to this game, and they return to this game because it is a cozy, familiar vibe. And if you start changing every fucking thing in this game to fit a sort of idealized balance, it just kind of defeats what people are coming back to the game for. Like, they want to return to something that's familiar and clunky and a little bit charming with just how goofy everything is and how things don't make sense. I feel like I'm more leaning on the side that you're taking, where I actually would love to see some changes, but I'm a little bit more more practical in how I'm approaching it. I just don't want. I still just understand that we have a certain amount of resources at our hands. We don't have unlimited time and energy and money to just start funneling into these rebalances. So I'm just trying to see what's the easiest way forward that still answers to a lot of these really fucked up imbalances, like creating rune plate legs and plate bodies at level 99, which is just absurd.
All right, I think that this is a really tightrope on which to balance the things, but it's also a point where everything converges. So the fifth age converges here. All of the other things about godhood, about power creep and whatnot converges into one thing. The game has a lot of content right now. For 13 years, there was so much content being adding constantly. Every time I come back to old school RuneScape, I see this new big thing, maybe a new raid or something, and there's an expectation for that. But PVM has a lot of stuff. Skilling has gotten quite a bit of stuff. PvP has changed a lot. Stuff has been added and accumulated for years. We have content that is ancient too. So there's plenty of opportunities to make things fresh without breaking the world by adding new stuff. And I think at some point you might run out of fantasy and escalate things to nonsense things. So things get ridiculous and they they start escalating the player's role, and that's where the game breaks. And maybe RuneScape 3 was going down that route, and maybe they kind of touched on that. I'm not sure, but I think this is where everything converges. For example, we have barrows. They are kind of relevant still and kind of getting old. Could they be repurposed without taking away the feeling that that was someone's achievement and now it is not valid? So not making barrows gear early game, even though it is because of the power creep. I think there's a lot of ways that devs can balance that thing. We have a lot of things that could balance out. The same goes for smithing. Like, if you just adjusted the levels and added new things, because there's plenty of things to be added to smithing, like, I don't know, even the ornament kits, you could make it. I'm not sure if they are a part of smithing or crafting or whatever, but you could make it that they require that skill and they become like that's the only way to make a Blorva or whatever.
Yeah, true.
I think that could be nice, but adding new stuff, I think we got a lot of stuff that we could rework.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the same page. How would you feel though if, I mean, you know, you're doing a certain grind or whatever, and then you quit, you take a little break for 2 years, and you come back, and every single thing, like all the goals you had, are just completely reworked, and the whole skill just feels entirely different and entirely new, and it's almost just like you have to relearn how to play that, especially not being young anymore. I mean, a lot of us are entering our 30s. If there's massive changes to things, and again, I feel like we're on the same page where we obviously see simple changes to this game being just a net positive. I mean, it's going to be a good, healthy thing to create these slight tweaks and stuff to make things feel balanced. But I'm talking about these huge overhauls where every sort of system in the smithing skill and skills beyond that, because we're talking about smithing right now, but it would eventually seep into other skills because other skills have really weird imbalances as well. And again, I'm kind of worried about us as a player base as a whole, you know, taking breaks, coming back, and then being like, I don't want to do this anymore because the game feels so foreign to me. And it's not like it's just going to have this one phase where, okay, we're rebalancing everything and now we're done. It's like, no, it's going to be this ongoing process, I imagine, of rebalancing things. And I get worried about players not enjoying having to relearn core aspects of the game that they've known for 20 years, and the nostalgia will just be kind of taken from them. And I don't know, I feel like I'm sitting on that little tightrope, not really knowing, you know, if I just feel like we have to change the game very carefully and slowly, as upsetting as that sounds. But and I said as upsetting as it sounds for me too, because I hate it when things take so long to get updated. It's like, holy crap, like this needs to be fixed. Please fix it right now before it's been 2 years. But at the same time, I feel like there is some value in keeping things somewhat stable.
Well, so the thing is, you talked about a grind. If someone is through a grind and things get suddenly changed, what kind of a grind it is? Is it a settled type of grind, or is it something normal, not a chunk man, not a tile man? Because in those cases, yes, those things get so upsetting that you would just quit the game. But in something a little bit softer, like you're not removing anything, you're not making people relearn everything by just changing at what level you can mine this ore or smelt it or make a plate body. I don't think that's that massive of a change. You're not getting rid of something that gave you nostalgia. I don't think no one is nostalgic about plate bodies, rune plate bodies being smithed at that level at 99.
Well,
and no one is actually flexing that. It's not a flex thing. Like,
yeah.
wow, you're able to smith rune plate bodies.
No, I mean that's a fair point, but what if, let me just give you a hypothetical of the suggestions I've sometimes seen. People are, I mean, when people think about a rework to smithing, they want all these brand new ores introduced. They want a bunch of different sort of like other elements that you can combine to make certain different imbues on your armor and stuff. Like people really want the smithing skill to be totally reworked, not just some level clamping and some simple changes to, okay, we can add some higher level ores and that's like the extent of it. People want like these new recipes of different alloys and different ways to smith. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is old school RuneScape, and I'm very concerned about a massive rework that feels like, I don't know if you were playing around the time of Forestry. Forestry ended up being quite tame, but they had some great ambitions for what they wanted Forestry to look like, and they were gonna just go to town, completely reworking how woodcutting works across the game, and completely like, I mean, they did a lot of changes to it, but they were going to add even more to Forestry Part 2 that, and most of it, almost all of it got scrapped eventually. But they had these great ambitions to add a bunch of stuff, and that worries me when a very, very simplistic part of the game gets very complexified for a what they imagine is a good reason, but it ends up just not being the game for it. Like, we want things to remain simple. I even saw a Reddit post the other day of talking about keeping old school simple and not adding too many complex layers to things. I think we saw that with the new prayer book they wanted to add, where it just kind of became this mishmash of like, this is too complicated and we need to keep things simple. So I think that's part of my worry as well.
Well, I think there's a place for everything. Even if we escalate the thing, we got to do it in the right way. The same thing goes with power creep. Like, if you power creep right, people don't think of it as power creep. So I think the first and most immediate thing that should be done to skilling or to whatever content we might think of is rebalancing. Taking the stuff that's still there and rebalance it. Then we can look at the game and see if there's way for growing it, escalating it and creating new stuff gradually. Because if you gave a person who was just logging in for the first time back in 2013 to old school RuneScape and said, this is what the game is going to become, do you think they would be hyped about it, or they would just quit immediately? I think they would quit immediately.
It would be very
because
daunting.
It was nostalgia-scape.
And it would have just been way too many things all at once, which is kind of going back to my point of like, it needs to be slowly implemented, which is pretty much natural. You can't really just add a bunch of stuff all of a sudden and snap of a finger. So
yeah, so I guess it's fine to have some things that are ignorable or irrelevant, but also some things should be definitely balanced. Think about it. You are forcing people to go through the outed game balancing just for the sake of nostalgia. I think that's not okay.
Not quite.
And the biggest example is just smithing rune plate bodies.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite just nostalgia though. I think it's that it's because there's one thing with nostalgia. I think it kind of ties in. So you're right to some degree, but I'm seeing it as this game speaks to people because it's familiar and it feels like you're coming home, to put it into your words. Like this is sort of a home for people, and drastic changes. Again, we agree on minor changes to things, making things feel balanced in a simplistic way and keeping it relatively tame. But I'm talking about those massive extreme pushes for completely re-identifying with a skill that's just completely different and it would take months of dev time. That's the kind of stuff where if a player comes back, it's not about the nostalgia that's lost. It's now about the familiarity. It's like, which I guess kind of intertwines with nostalgia, but it's more like you're going to come home and the home's not going to feel the same. And it's not just about,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
I miss the good times. It's like, no, the feeling of just knowing what you're doing and feeling this sort of deep comprehension for the game is now eliminated, and it's going to continue to get eroded if they keep adding massive, drastic changes to skills.
Yeah, I had this fear with sailing, but it was implemented so well, or it feels so old school RuneScape to a point where I was afraid for the first few hours, but then the fear was just gone. And yes, I would be scared to log in a couple of years and see people smithing borrow armor.
Yeah.
I don't want there to be that sort of thing. So the best thing I think they could do is just to rebalance for now.
Yeah, I'm on that same page with you, same wavelength. Let me you bring up sailing. Let me hear your thoughts. That was your first video idea of just talking about how sailing actually feels in the game. And it sounds like you're pretty positive about it. I want to hear why you enjoy sailing and why you think it fits old school, and maybe even some ideas for improvements if you have any.
Uh, I don't think I have too many ideas or too many opinions right now, but I think, well, for the first impression that it gave me, and I haven't played sailing that much lately, but I love it. It just feels old school RuneScape. It is so charming. It was implemented visually and mechanically in the right way. There's a lot of gripes that people have with it. People don't like it. People say it's becoming EOC again, but I don't see it that way. I think sailing has a huge potential to make the game even more fun. Think about things that other games have lost, and I will be touching that in some of my upcoming content. Uh, Exploration in games is lost, especially in a game like old school RuneScape, where you have the wiki, you got the RuneLite client with all those helpers and plugins, and you just lose the fun of exploring. But those are also tools made by the community for convenience, so there's that. I think they have a lot of potential with sailing because they can release new areas and make people sail there for the first few times until you unlock something that allows you to get there more easily. Maybe not necessarily a teleport like Varlamore is pretty cool. They did that. They've done that with Great Corrend. You for the first time you get to walk around it until you get the amulet, the Xerix amulet. And I think sailing has a lot of potential to be the tool for that. They also have a lot of opportunities like for diving and underwater cities, maybe even submarines and whatnot. Maybe introduce them to those, well, to maybe the submarine part, make it integrate with smithing and whatnot, or or all those other artisan or production skills. I guess that's why I like sailing.
Hmm.
It's pretty fun. It has a lot of potential and it feels just right.
Now you got me thinking about an underwater city. That would be amazing. I'm thinking of like Star Wars Episode One, if you've seen that. Just going down to the Gungan city down there, where they like swim down. They just enter this little like force field thing, and they're just like in there.
I
That
gotta let you down. I'm not a Star Wars fan.
Oh,
Not yet.
I'm not a huge Star Wars nerd by any means, but I remember as a child watching those movies and Star Wars Episode 1 going down. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan go down there and start swimming and enter this little Gungan city that it has air, it has like oxygen and stuff, but it's like this little force field around the area. That would be so cool to add, actually. You have to like sail out and you got to like swim down and enter it. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Okay, I'm going to touch on sailing a little bit more. Mainly in regard to, do you feel like anything was taken away from the game with adding sailing? Because again, you sort of had this fear that was sort of lingering. It pretty much immediately vanished. But there's some people that are worried about future skills as well, of like, okay, that's one thing if you just add a skill, but what if more skills are added? Is there something that's going to be lost with the game, or is it pretty much going to be a net positive? And I have one more question to follow up after you respond.
I think it's going to be really positive if we keep adding skills, especially if they think them in the right way or come up with them in the right way. There were quite a bit of proposals of skills, and I think sailing was the right choice. I forgot what I was going to say about it. If you want to go ahead, I will come back to this.
Let me ask you about, were you around when they were initially polling sailing with the other two skills, taming and shamanism?
I think I was around, or at least I saw the videos and the dev blogs, but not so much.
Okay. Well, this is sort of tying back to one of my fears with the sort of complexity of old school. Sailing feels a lot more standalone. It feels like it can sort of be ignored and people can play the game normally without ever really getting into sailing. I think they did a great job balancing it, where there still is a decent amount of incentive to still do sailing. They've added new clue scroll steps to certain islands. They've added new high level fish, which can't be accessed unless you sail. And then like they have the teleport focuses, which just allow you to teleport to certain islands quickly, which does have a lot of use, but it's not essential. What was concerning is a skill like shamanism, in my view, where you now have, I think their original poll was, or original sort of blog post was talking about this different world, like this sort of world you can go to that's more mystical. It's the same world, but everything just looks different. So you kind of can flip flop between the main Gielinor and then like the underworld, sort of, that turns everything into, if you've done like the Desert Treasure 2 quest, the Whisperer area, where you like kind of change everything into like the dark mode, sort of, and then you flip back. Like I have no idea what their intention or like the magnitude of the project was really going to look like, but in my view, and then like the rewards of that skill would have been a lot of imbues and auras and things you're attaching to armor. And I'm just thinking, as cool as that sounds in theory, I think there's something very charming and something that we need to hold on to with old school, which is the sheer simplicity of like, an armor is a piece of armor, and that's really the extent of it. When you see somebody with Torva, you don't have to examine their Torva plate body and be like, what's your like what kind of auras do you have attached to this, and embalms and these other like gem boosting things. Like I feel like games go down that path really easily because they just realize it's a simple way to add complexity and some interesting cool effects to armor, but it becomes overwhelming to a player, especially in a game like old school RuneScape. So one of my fears with a new skill, I don't lose sleep over it or anything at the moment, but is a skill that becomes too complex. And I wonder if you share a similar fear or not.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I was afraid of things like, I don't remember the name of the very first skill that was pulled. That was about making new armor or something.
Warding.
Yeah, I was not a fan of that, but I'm a fan of sailing because it's an actual skill. We have skills that could be looked at in different ways. We have, unfortunately, spells that could have been entire skills, like alchemy. That would have been a cool skill, but it's just a spell which converts items into gold.
Yeah.
And I think that could have been a really great skill.
Interesting. Yeah, for real.
Maybe they do it. I don't know.
There's no like, because again, like that's a cool idea, and I feel like warding had a similar approach where, I mean, it felt like, I mean, I guess you could argue with a lot of different skills of what could be separated, because crafting, for example, you could really separate that skill into multiple different tiers, like weaving and pottery and glass like glass making. It's like glass crafting or whatever you'd call it. What is the term for glass making or glass blowing? There's got to be some interesting term for that terminology. Anyway, but yeah, you could kind of separate those, but at the same time, my argument at the time, you know, this is 8 years ago or so, was arguing like we don't need warding because it can just be implemented into magic and crafting. You could craft the robes and then you could imbue them with your magic skill. But do you think there's any road forward with separating, like detaching certain elements of skills into their own skill? Like, let's just say they were, I don't know if this is the best example for it, but let's just say they were to separate alchemy from magic and turn it into its own skill, and they have a lot more to, you know, offer with that skill as well. I'm not going to go into details, so it's going to be hard for the audience to imagine this, but like imagine they did have a skill that actually does encompass so much more, and alchemy becomes this super interesting thing where everything can kind of be manipulated. Do you think that would be a way forward and something that would be healthy for the game, to kind of separate skills from other skills?
Well, yes and no. I definitely am welcoming that, but I wouldn't capitalize on that and make it the new way of developing content. While there's this kind of thing already in the game, and I think it's too late to add that skill. I'm talking about artisan. I heard some people talking about it, but what artisan is basically a lot of production kind of skills that we have already in the game, which is crafting, smithing, cooking, and whatnot. I think that's artisan, and making an artisan skill would be a bad thing. But breaking down skills into different kind of things, yeah, potentially, but you need to be really careful about that. The same thing, I think the same philosophy should be about new skills. Like, you find a cool idea, but there are a lot of parallel things. Like in crafting, you can do a bunch of things, as you were saying, but breaking that down or finding the more generic thing that puts it sort of in a container with similar things, in a way maybe that crafting is.
Yeah, I just don't.
I don't know if I expressed the concept right.
I just don't imagine. I mean, I'm more talking about this just for thought-provoking sake. I want to hear these ideas out loud, because although I don't imagine we'd ever take old school down a direction where we're like separating skills, even if it feels like there could be some potential for it, I just think the community definitely wants something new and fresh. And I also think going forward with a new skill, most of the community that I hear from on Reddit and when I was on Twitter is people talking about having a skill that sort of supports combat, because we have leaned heavily into PvM Scape with old school, and I actually will have some thoughts on that I want to ask you about, just broadly speaking, the game's direction into more PvM. And you mentioned that in the beginning of your video too, just like a lot of people are just so pigeonholed into this game is about efficiency with getting my gear and stuff, and they're not seeing this overarching theme that the game offers. So but yeah, one of my fears potentially, but also what I imagine the community mostly wants, is a skill that sort of supports PvM, or even is a sort of PvM skill. There's people that have even asked about introducing dungeoneering back into the game, which I am not familiar with that much. I mean, I've watched videos on it, but I was not engaging in that skill back then because I wasn't really playing in that time period. So
yeah, same.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack right there, but what are your thoughts on a skill that is more PvM focused, and then your overall thoughts on the game's constant trajectory toward improving PvM and making some really, really brilliant encounters, but kind of lacking in other aspects of the game potentially?
I think that is already happening and happened. A lot of people are calling the game PvMscape, and I think that's so true, because the majority of the updates to the game were uh, centered towards PVM, and we have so many things about it, and it's maybe even a little too accessible. There's so much stuff that you can do PVM wise, whether it's Slayer, whether it's bossing, whether it's low level bossing, whether it's I don't know, AFKing or whatever you want. There's so many things, and I think we have so many things that it should not be the focus for a while. I think this is a hot take, but I don't think it should be the main focus of a game for a while. But every time I come back to old school RuneScape, or every time or every year, there's that period where you are expecting to hear about a new PVM update, whether it's Colosseum or Perilous Moons or a new raid or a new minigame or whatever. I think we have had so much of it, and it would be refreshing to see some of the other fundamental game pillars to be addressed.
Yeah, I feel like they try to address them, but it's never the focus of it. And it makes perfect sense why, because they see the community mostly wants to just kill shit. And they do a great job with introducing new PVM encounters that just feel amazing. With skilling, it feels like a lot of the time we get these subpar updates that is a cool concept, but the actual implementation of it doesn't feel satisfying at all. PVM feels extremely satisfying in so many ways. Just the fluidity of your players' movements. With skilling, there's a lot of I call it stickiness, where again PVM you're not like running up to the boss and then feeling like you're glued to the boss. You can freely move about, and you can be 2 tiles away and swing at your target and actually hit it immediately. With skilling, there's this constant locking in of your character, which feels so bad. And I don't think this is, again, my kind of agenda that I've been pushing for years and years, is like clean up skilling, like make it feel good, make it feel bouncy and snappy and enjoyable and satisfying. And I don't feel like the developers have understood that. And in my view, that would literally make skilling across the board so much more enjoyable for the average player, is to have, if it's to just look at an actual place in the game. Like I'm going to bring up Motherlode Mine, for example. Motherlode Mine, can you imagine a PVM boss where in order to get to the boss, you have to spend 5 seconds mining these 2 roadblocks in the way just to get to the next fucking hallway? Like you just got to sit there with a pickaxe and swing at this rock to cross to the next rock to swing at that one, and then you can finally move. Like that would be infuriating. Nobody would accept that. Everybody would be just fuming, and all the PVMers would scream about it until they finally fix it. With skilling, we've just become so apathetic. Not even become apathetic. We've just never embraced what skilling can really be. But we add these super annoying, trivial, just scattered about bullshit into skilling activities. And I feel like the developers just feel like, oh yeah, this is a part of the masochism that we need to add to skilling to make it feel like a grind. And I'm just thinking to myself, why the fuck are we not cleaning up these places that feel terrible? Like they just feel terrible. And Motherlode Mine is a great example of it, of just these stupid rocks that are falling. Like that alone is super tilting. But then, like in every other place, like you look at doing hunter rumors and you're doing these certain hunter activities, and everything feels so clunky and sticky. And it's like, there's a reason people want to avoid it and just get it over with so they can go back to the fun stuff where they actually care about the feeling of the activity, which is all PVM. Like PVM has been cleaned up and cleaned up. Like Abyssal Sire used to be really crappy. A lot of people didn't like it, and then they cleaned it up and it feels amazing now. And they don't do the same thing with skilling hardly ever. And I'm just thinking to myself, why are we not addressing this kind of stuff? It's clear the way forward, which is just cleaning it up and making it feel good. I wonder if you share a similar sort of thought process on that, or if you've ever considered it.
Well, absolutely, yes. I did consider it, and I'm not so much about maybe the skilling in general about this, but I was excited when they announced forestry and the initial concepts of it. But then I just quit the game. I had some side quests in real life and I forgot about it. When I came back, I just noticed that it wasn't such a big thing anymore. But yeah, I think a lot of stuff needs to be cleaned up. And as I said, maybe not necessarily skilling wise, but I see things in the game, even like maybe aesthetic things like the Lumbridge Castle, or not being able to see the ceiling of places. If you look from the outside and you just see this transparent thing, that makes me infuriate, and it's just such a simple fix. Yeah, but I think you're onto something with skilling, polishing, I guess.
Yeah.
And I would have some ideas. I think it shouldn't be like all super clean. I think there's a place for everything, and we have so many skills and a huge variety. We have different categories, whether it is gathering, whether it's production or combat related skills or skilling, I guess, like hunter or slayer. They have different concepts about them, and I think there's so much potential for each skill to feel different level, to give different level of engagement without becoming an inconvenience. Because if you make something too engaging, you lose the AFK aspect, which is like the nature of this game. This is like a second monitor game. We're not trying to make it I don't know, what's a super engaging game that you need to pay attention.
Any console game feels like you just have to have your hand on the controller.
Yeah. We're not trying to make it bad.
Yeah.
I hope.
No, and so, I think there is a place for both. I've always been a huge advocate for, having the AFK activities that are super AFK and almost, and they could also polish the AFK activities. Imagine someplace like Zaya Runecrafting where you're there and like the rock can just deplete after 1, but it can also deplete after like 28. And it's like there's no rhyme or reason for when it's going to deplete. I feel like those, like you should, forestry, they actually cleaned up the rate that trees respawn to be very, very static and very predictable. And I feel like that was a very positive change for a game that is sort of centered on AFKing your skilling. And they could clean that up. And I embrace the AFK skills. I just think that there is a place for actual active skilling that could feel good and not feel like a total chore and a total just torture session for people.
Yeah. I think, there's a lot of things that could be said, like skilling. Well, it was born like that. It was born to be grindy. It was enjoyable, and even in the private servers I played, it was a part of the game just to grind, and that's the culture about old school RuneScape or RuneScape in general. But I think there's room for a lot of things, like maybe skill expression in some skills, not in every skill. Like you don't need to express, in my opinion, your skill when you are trying to maybe do some herb lore or something. It's such a chill thing. But in hunter, or maybe even, I don't know, fishing, that has a lot of potential.
Yeah. I always have
like thinking about the hunter or fishing, for example. Does it take skill now? Are there any ways of making those or doing those skills that require skills? Obviously, 3 taken, 5 taken, 3 taken, tick manipulation in general. There is that. It takes skill, but it is not intended as the PVM tick manipulation was not intended, as the true tile was not intended for people to know, and now it is intended. Content is built around that. I think for skilling, there could be stuff that is built around these mechanics.
I am totally on board with you, which again is, I will not touch on this much, but one of the ideas I took from the skill idea mastery, which was sort of like an artisan clone around the time when sailing was being proposed. And one of the rewards was a gnome cube, which is basically a knife log or an herb tar, but just one item that you just click once instead of having to click 2 things. And I thought that was a brilliant idea because it just answers what you were saying of like, well, why not just embrace what skilling in PVM has become? PVM has fully embraced it. We literally are like designing bosses to be manipulated in certain ways, where skipping over tiles is exactly what is intended, and doing prayer flicks and doing red Xing is actually part of the intended mechanic of it, and it ends up being fully embraced. And I just think in skilling, there's still this hesitancy to embrace what's already there, which is a tick manipulatable element of basically all gathering skills. Like you can always sort of tick manipulate in some ways, and yet we have latched on to and we can't let go of the knife log or the herb tar. Like we need to keep this for whatever reason until the end of time. And I'm like, why can't we just simplify it? Why can't we all know that tick manipulation exists? There's whole wiki pages on how to tick manipulate and stuff. Like it's fully embraced and it's not going away. It's just not going away. So why not just clean it up and polish it so it feels very good and satisfying and rewarding and not wrist breaking? Because anybody that really tries to do tick manipulation that is not a 20-year-old with fresh wrists and has a perfect hardware, like perfect mouse precision and perfect 240 hertz monitor, you're just not going to have a fun time clicking on repeat 3 times, 2 of those clicks within the same tick, just over and over and over until you beat your head into the wall. Like it's just, this is not the way forward with skilling. And yet I don't know who we're listening to at this point that's like keeping the game that way. This just feels like a super, super simple fix to like just polish things. And I always have to preface that like a gnome cube would not solve everything. I think the satisfaction of skilling comes from that like predictable extraction of resources. So it doesn't matter about knife logging or gnome cubing or whatever. It really just matters about clicking something on a certain tick interval and receiving it. It's like that satisfaction. It's like when you hit a monster, you're immediately seeing the damage swing right as you click it, and that feels so extraordinarily satisfying in just so many ways. And you're seeing the animation. The same thing needs to happen with skilling, in my view. It's like when you click an object that you're trying to extract something from, you should get it when you click it and anticipate it. Yeah, you can have a failed roll or whatever, but what we don't want to see is Winter Todd, where you roll up to a brazier and then spend 5 seconds watching your guy loading up to finally dump the kindling in, but then you get frozen and then you have to redo it. And it's like, this feels terrible. Imagine you clicked on a boss to start swinging, and now it takes you another 3 ticks to finally swing your sword. That would feel terrible. And we just embrace it with skilling. I don't know why, and it's terrible. And I just want the game to feel that same satisfaction across all aspects of the game. And we, for some reason, we just have not gotten there as a community and as a development team.
Yeah, I guess there's also no excuse for that, because there are things that could be translated to skilling, even from PVM, and make it so much better. Like, for example, there's an instance which I keep thinking about, Vardorvis fight. When you get that little pop-up, I think it's Vardorvis head or something, where you get to click random stuff in quick succession to avoid damage or something like that. Mm-hmm. Why not add that for Hunter? Like, you're trying to fight against a creature you just captured, and if you fail, it might escape, or you have a level chance of capturing it. Or if you do it successfully, you get a bigger XP drop or something.
Yeah, no,
that would be pretty cool.
You're right. And what they have implemented into skilling, which I am happy about, is these sorts of loot sacks and loot crates and reward pulls and stuff. I really enjoy that. I think it's a very simple thing to do, and it's surprising how well it's received, because it just feels so simplistic. But when you see PVM, you are constantly excited about the next drop, because it could be the big ticket drop that you're looking for. In a lot of classic skilling, there is none of that. You are just grinding for the XP for the sake of XP, just to move on with your life. It's purely a means to an end. And I'm just thinking, why not add some more cool RNG elements to skilling? Not all of it, but just add that little sprinkle of, getting something rare from a rock, maybe. I mean, we have been capped for the whole game's history of only getting a sapphire to a diamond when you're mining a rock. Why not have that rare chance of getting a dragonstone, or a super rare chance of just mining an onyx? Like, how cool would it be to get that? And then again, I know this is going to almost sound uh, like contradictory to what I was saying earlier about like complexity. But there actually is a lot of room to add equipment to skilling, because with PVM you have this massive tree of your gear. I mean, you just have endless amounts of gear you can equip to pimp out your guy, and you have different stats. What if we were to go down a very tamed, very toned down route with skilling, where you have different tools? So we just have basically bronze through dragon or crystal pickaxes and
I love it.
axes and stuff. But why not have different tiers at that high level, where you have like, okay, this is a pickaxe. This is kind of stealing it from Minecraft, but like, why not have a pickaxe that has like Fortune 3 on it? You know, some pickaxe that like is it doesn't even have to have an imbue. It could just be a separate pickaxe that you get that now is about profit. You know, you're getting more profit, and there could be some cool special attack with it that it feels very satisfying and rewarding to just smash a rock to bits and you get a bunch of resources. Like, it's that kind of stuff that we just miss out. Skilling is, let me also frame it one last way and I'll let you respond, is we saw at the very beginning of RuneScape when Andrew Gower decided to add special attacks to weapons. Before that, everything was auto attacks. It was just hit the guy hits you. And now we've added special attacks to weapons. And those have just evolved over time of really, really intricate and interesting and cool and powerful special attacks. But we don't get that with skilling. Skilling's special attack is a dragon axe or a dragon pickaxe that boosts your level by 3, and it doesn't even work post 99 anyway, so it just feels totally crappy. Why not have it just be like a dragon claw pickaxe special that charges up over not your special attack ability, but over how much you've mined and resources. So you can't like abuse it with spec transferring alts or hitting your pool over and over. You would have to actually do the activity, and then it builds up a little bit of a charge where you just unleash on a resource. That kind of stuff would make skilling just fun and engaging and more satisfying for people that want to be active. Not to say there are plenty of people that would just avoid it anyway and just do their star mining or any AFK activity. So you'd have a place for both.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's a great concept. I have never really thought about it. Maybe the special attacks, yes, but the equipment, no. And I would love it. The thing is, I think there's a much deeper issue with that, because skilling is not so compelling anymore. You don't skill for anything else but just get your max cape or your 99 cape.
Yep.
Or because you just need it for a quest. You're not going to go and catch your own fish. PVM gives you that. PVM gives you all of the resources. You get so much of that. And I think that's not the greatest thing about it. There should be like some sort of incentive to get your untradeable fish that heals more or is so tasty that you just get some kind of boost or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
but I think there's so many ideas by the community about it.
Look at what they've done with deep sea trawling. I mean, we have these brand new fish, specifically, I'm thinking halibut and marlin, which are the new highest healing food. Halibut being like the Karambuan equivalent, but heals 20 instead of 18, and marlin that heals 24 instead of 22. But they are exclusively from deep sea trawling. You don't get them from drop tables, as far as I'm aware. Maybe one or two from like salvaging or whatever, but like you are not getting mass amounts of this from PVM. And I really, really hope that Jagex can maintain that and not succumb to, oh, people want this food, let's just drop 100 noted marlin on this new boss drop table. Like, that would kill that skilling activity. It would just start devaluing it immediately. And we saw that with Wrath Runes. Wrath Runes used to be a purely sort of rune crafting based rune you could get. Then the Scar Essence came out, where now you can just kind of, if you have the runecraft level, you just craft like 1 billion of them instantly, basically. And then you also have drop tables like Yama that now drop like 400 or 800 at a time, or whatever the amount is. So it's sort of devalued that skill. It's like you don't need to go here for your Wrath Runes anymore. And I just feel like you're destroying the identity of these skills that actually you could have maintained properly. The same thing with Cosmic Runes, at least for a while. The only place to buy Cosmic Runes was out in the mage bank out in the wilderness. And for Iron Man, you had to really just craft your own cosmic runes. And nowadays, it's just like, I just go buy them. And it eliminates that necessity to skill. And I think most of it's for Iron Man for sure, but mains as well. I mean, if they keep deep sea trawling the way it is, mains, people have to do the actual fishing activity to get these fish. They can't just go PVM for it and flood the market.
Yeah, and that's really really nice, and I think that's one of the things that I kept seeing in the private servers, because they kept trying to keep skills relevant so people do things and make the economy spin. Because if you keep getting stuff from drops, you won't be paying people for their skills, and it's going to just not be a thing. Skilling is not going to be compelling anymore. There's no reason, just aside from a skill itself. So yeah, I hope that they do more, or maybe they even rework drop tables and remove a lot of resources from them. That would be a healthy change, and I think, but that's another hot take.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you. I just think it's a huge undertaking at this point, and the more deep we dig our heels into PVM Scape, nerfing drop tables just never feels good. And it wouldn't be, in my view, you couldn't just nerf the drop tables right now and everything's solved. It's like, no, we need to address the fundamental issues with skilling. They feel terrible to train. Most people don't want to interact with skilling. They want to just AFK the hell out of it and not think about what they're doing. And that's an issue. Why you actually can make this whole game is just point and click. Everything's just point and click. And the same thing with PVM, same thing with skilling. You're pointing and clicking, but there's so much more excitement and fun in PVM. Why is that? Well, let's break it down. And then like you start breaking it down and you see, okay, skilling is very sticky and crappy and not rewarding and all these other things. So it's like you just solve the underlying issues, and then you really can go forward with making or like nerfing drop tables, because there's actually an incentive now to go and interact and have fun with skilling. And we are so far away from that point, unfortunately. But I think we're right on the edge of like figuring it out. I think like the devs are slowly starting to understand a little bit of what makes skilling fun. We haven't gotten there. We haven't landed exactly yet, but that is my optimism for the future of the game, is like just trying to get everything else elevated as much as PVM's been elevated over the years.
Yeah, I really hope for that. And especially, as I said before, I'm not specifically into any, how to call it, faction of a game. So I'm not a PVMer nor a skiller, but I think there's one really undervalued aspect of the game. And I think it's one of the big three. It's one of those components that could make the game so much better again, which is PvP. I probably am not the right person to talk about PvP because I have basically never partaken that, but I think that's one of the things that could have so much attention given to it, and it could balance the things so much better for the equipment, for skilling and whatnot, because a lot of resources and a lot of gear go to PvP or could go to PvP. Even older gear like Barrows is still used widely in PvP, and I think that's one of the things that could help balance things out and make the game more engaging for everyone.
Yeah, PvP is one of those real spicy topics, because you got a lot of players that are very, very sort of set on keeping it very old school and not making any changes. I feel like that's slightly eroding now because just of the state of PvP or of PvP. It's just in a terrible state right now where hardly anybody's interacting with it, at least visibly. Most PvPers are like not even PvPing anymore. They're just like creating hardcores and kind of doing PVM a lot more. And before I share briefly of just how I see PvP and the way forward, let me get your understanding of PvP and what you could see, at least just broad themes of how you could see it being improved.
Well, I don't have too many ideas. That's why I said I might not be the right person to talk about it. I don't think I even have a say about what PvP should be, but I was recording this video that we are talking about a video of mine, and I was struggling to find people in Wilderness, and I was like, what happened to PvP? And I managed to find people just in free to play, and that really hit me because that is almost not a part of the game anymore. It's just a couple of PvP worlds that are limited to Grand Exchange, and we have this whole area of the world which should be dedicated to PvP, the wilderness. Otherwise, it's just a thematic wasteland with nothing there. Maybe a couple of bosses, but are not even that good.
Yeah.
So I think it should be somehow incentivized for people to go there to PK in wilderness and to get PK'd, and maybe, I don't know, reusing some existing stuff to make PK that could have advantages in PvP for PKing specifically.
Yeah, PK.
Maybe some mid-level stuff. I don't know.
It's a tough one, and I appreciate your honesty with just acknowledging you're not the person to ask. I'm not a PvPer by any means either. That's dedicating I'm mostly an Iron Man player, but I have spent months and months out in the wilderness, and not to flex. This really is not a flex, but it's just trying to share how much time I have spent in the wilderness. I was the first Iron Man before all the wilderness boss reworks to complete the wilderness entirely, like getting all the uniques, all the pets and everything. So I had spent like a lot of time, like years out in the wilderness grinding as the prey, sort of, not the predator. I'm the Iron Man out there that's not fighting back, or I would fight back, but there's no incentive for it. So I have a very clear-eyed view, at least for an Iron Man's perspective, of what could just totally transform the wilderness and create a lot better incentives for everybody. And again, I just see the game as we have like half the community seemingly being Iron Man accounts, some type of Iron Man or Snowflake, and excuse me. And I'm just seeing it as, and this is a discussion that's actually ongoing in the, like, internally, sort of. I've been a part of just mild Discord discussions with JMods and other well-known PvPers, such as like Eliop and Framed is in there, and some other guys. And Mod Manked is talking about these ideas, and one of the ideas that I feel like is going more and more noticed by the community is this sort of PvP coffer idea, which basically just incentivizes all player types to be able to actually fight and have some incentive to fight back. And what it does is, I'll keep it simple. I'm not going to go down a whole deep dive here because I know my audience has heard this a million times, and I know there's some that have probably already clicked off because they hear this all the time. But more and more people are understanding where this idea is coming from, which is just making it so right now the wilderness is dying because whenever you add any sort of update, it feels like you are just creating a terrible place for people that don't want to do PvP to now feel kind of obligated to do some form of PvP and be on the wilderness. And there's no incentive for an Iron Man to fight back, because if they kill somebody, it doesn't mean anything. It's like they haven't gained anything from their account. And so the Iron Man, or this PvP coffer, which I collaborated with Vader on. So if anybody's listening that's interested in the full breakdown of this idea, go listen to the cast about a month ago with Vader. It simply is a way to have deaths just be GP focused. So whatever you're risking, so when you go to like your gear tab and it shows what your wilderness risk is, that if you die now to a PK or with that amount of risk, it would be extracted from your coffer. So you dump GP, and it can only be GP, into this coffer, and then when you die, that coffer money gets turned into a loot key for the PKer, and then they can open it, and it's just the gold. It's just the GP value of what they were risking. So when you die as any account, and this is not just for Iron Man, it's for all players, and I think it would be a beautiful thing for even main accounts, is when you die now, if your coffer sufficiently could pay for the death, you respawn in your respawn location with all your gear and all your equipment and all your items still on you. You've just lost the GP value of it all. So you're immediately back in the action. There's not like this devastating feeling of just having all your items stolen from you. And especially as an Iron Man, that's like the worst feeling ever, is like grinding for these certain items, and if you lose it, it's like you can't just go buy it on the Grand Exchange again. It's gone. Like you have to go regrind it from the source, which is terrible. And that kind of solves that issue, and it kind of just gets you right back into the flow and the gameplay and going right back out in the wilderness in a really fun and quick, snappy way. And it also encourages anti-PKing. So if you're the Iron Man that's getting attacked, you now have an incentive to attack back, because if you kill the PKer, their loot, if they're opted into this coffer system and they have their money in their coffer, when they die, that loot key can now be deposited into your Iron Man coffer. However, the Iron Man can never extract the money. It can only ever be inserted into it. So now let's just say you killed a PKer that dropped 20 mil in value. Now your coffer is loaded with 20 mil. You can't touch it, but it can now pay for future deaths of yours out in the wilderness. So now it's like, oh, I can kind of go out in the wilderness a little bit more risk-free because I decided to attack back. And now I can go out in the wilderness. If I die, it doesn't matter, because the coffer is just going to pay for it for the next few deaths. And I feel like that's going to create a way more vibrant system of fighting back. There's going to be a lot more activity. There's going to be more incentive for everybody to be out there. And there's not going to be this pit in your stomach that, believe it or not, a lot of players do have when they die. It's just a terrible feeling. And I just feel like it's not necessary these days in 2026. And so I feel like that shift changes everything. So now you can actually add wilderness updates. You can add fun activities out there, because more people want to engage, because it's not the most terrible activity when you die. It's just a really snappy, go back and forth, kill people, have fun, and everybody's incentivized to fight. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. I think I have been on both sides. A lot of dying, and I had killed a couple of people in wilderness, so I know how it feels from both sides. This is a nice idea. It's quite good, especially if it's effective. Like if it really works, then effort well spent. But it has some risk that it's not incentive enough unless you follow up updates with actual content that lead you into wilderness or force you into wilderness. There still wouldn't be intentional PvP fights anymore, I think. And that's what I would like to see more. The cover idea is really great. And I think, especially for Iron Man, that's a great thing. But I would like to see some intentional fighting back in the wilderness, not in a designated world.
So what are your thoughts on then? This is something that's brought up. I never feel like I can talk on this topic because it's just not relevant for me, and I don't feel like I'm the one to have this discussion with. But there has been over the years people thinking that PvP enabled worlds has reduced, obviously, the amount of players out in the normal wilderness, because a lot of people will just do Grand Exchange fighting or fighting in these little designated areas. Like some people go to Cather, or they go to Sears Village or whatever, like what am I thinking? Camelot Telly, where that bank chest is. Like there's people that fight in PvP worlds specifically. So you as a normal player that's never on PvP worlds is just gonna never see all these fights going on. And I don't feel like I have enough to say like, oh yeah, just delete that and put everyone in the wilderness, because I do feel like the PvPers are choosing to be on those PvP worlds for a reason, because they just enjoy them more. But if you eliminated those, there definitely would be a surge of activity in the wilderness. That's for sure.
Well, if you don't feel qualified enough to say anything about it, I will take the risk and I will say it. I'm still a nobody. I just made one video that was a little bit successful, so I'm taking the risk and I'm gonna say it for you. I think PvP worlds should be removed, and if they need another hub for PKing that is not the Grand Exchange or Camelot or Lumbridge or whatever it is, just go to Ferox Enclave. It's a great place. It's in the middle of wilderness. You got a bank, you got a way to replenish your skills. You could add whatever you need. It's a dedicated space, so I think that would be really cool. And as you said, normal players don't get to observe any of the fights, so there's no way of learning or understanding what's going on. And I think that could be a healthy update, but this is a really hot take, and I understand if a lot of people do not resonate with that. But I think that would be a really great idea.
Let me cross this by you as well, because this is another thing that's been talked about. A lot of the wilderness, when you get higher level, feels extremely unfair and very lopsided. Where you go out to level 50 wilderness and you're a level 70, you can be attacked by a level 120. And it's like, where's the fairness in that? Like, where, like, is this, we've always dealt with the wilderness in this sort of extreme where it just gets deeper and riskier. But what is stopping us from deciding why not just cap those level differences to like 20 levels so that whenever you are encountered by a PKer, you're actually having a fight with somebody that's relatively your level, so it's not just this total decimating, like you're gonna get fucked so hard right now because you literally have one defense, you're a level 70 running around in 50 wilderness, and this guy's in full max. It's like, is that really something we want to be promoting until the end of time? Is just this super deep risk where anybody that's just higher level is just better than you? And I think, if we were to make some changes to that and make it so everything's a little bit more squished, where the max, you're ever fighting anybody is like level 20, but it kind of remains that way throughout the wilderness. So like, for example, if you get into a fight, you can't just run to a lower level wilderness and then, they can't fight you anymore. It's like, no, as soon as you're locked in, now you have to actually fully escape the wilderness to actually evade the fight. So as soon as you're locked into a fight, the leveling difference doesn't matter the lower like you get to. This is obviously some specifics that don't really matter as much at the moment, but do you have any thoughts so far? I have a little bit more to share, but
when it happens to you, it sucks. It sucks. I know the feeling, but actually I love it because we're talking about it from the perspective of the victim. We are always the victim, but have you ever tried to put yourself at the side of the attacker? I think I would be laughing out loud, killing someone who is struggling to defend themselves. I would be having the time of my life. And I think the system is ancient, but it's fun. And that's okay. The game needs to be fun. It doesn't necessarily need to be fair, because wilderness is where unfair things happen. I guess it's a place with no rules, and that's okay with me.
That's fair.
And that's how it's always been. And I think that's a great thing. Obviously, I would get angry anytime that happens to me, but I recognize that I took the risk. I went there. It's my own fault. I'm an adult. I can take my own responsibility for that.
Do you feel like it's creating a better atmosphere? Because again, like we've seen this same thing where it's like, oh, this is how it's always been, but we've also seen the wilderness decline in activity year after year after year, and it's just at a point where nobody wants to be out there really, and the PKers that are out there aren't seeing any activity, so they leave eventually. And to be honest, I'm not fully sold on the idea I just shared anyway. I just think these are ideas that are shared among the community of why, like, you have a PvP world. In PvP worlds, there's always just a 15 I think it's a 15 combat level difference on each end. That's it. Like, you're running around the entire world. The whole thing is a PvP enabled area. Do you think it would be a more fun experience for that to be there to be no level cap, so a level 3 can be attacked by level 126? Or do you think that 15 level clamp is actually healthy? And again, we're not really the people to ask because we don't go to PvP worlds often, if at all. But that's sort of a hypothetical. Is like, would it be a more fun experience to just decimate a level 3 that's trying to do whatever he's doing in a PvP world? Or is it cool to have some sort of limits of like, okay. And then the other thing I wanted to share was, what if you did have certain wilderness worlds that have level disparities? So for example, you could have a wilderness world that when you go to the world switcher, it would be like, this wilderness is all within 20 combat levels apart. This one is within 30. This one is all, you just, anybody can attack anybody, and you kind of get to choose. I mean, I just don't think, I think at that point there would be a very clear winner, and that winner would be the smallest clamping, of course, because nobody wants to be attacked. They want to have the smallest chance of being attacked. So I do think there could be some issues arising there, but that just goes to show,
be a waste of worlds.
Yeah, it just goes to show, however, that maybe there is some attractive incentive to actually make the wilderness a little bit more fair, or a little, or even something like this. Let's just say you are attacked by a level by somebody level or 50 levels higher than you at level 50. What if in that situation you don't lose everything? In fact, the more levels they are ahead of you, the less you lose. So there's sort of this scaling of like, you're not going to lose everything here because this guy is so outclassing you in every possible way that when you die, you're only going to lose a few items. And again, if you introduce the wilderness coffer idea, that becomes super, super streamlined, where like, let's just say the level difference is so extreme that there's a percentage taken. So if a level 126 attacks a level 70 out in deep wilderness, instead of that level 70 that was risking 1 mil, maybe he just loses 100K from that because there is just such a big disparity. So it feels more fair. So you could still have the fun as the level 126 fucking somebody over and killing them immediately, but you're not going to get the same reward as if you were a closer level to them. So you have more incentive to attack people your level. And if you attack somebody higher level than you, maybe you even get an extra bonus or something. So like you getting attacked by a lower level is like, oh crap, like I don't want to lose even more potentially, you know? And again, the PvP coffer system kind of allows that sort of scaling if we were to go down that route.
You just said what would be the meta, actually. The meta would be being lower level and attacking these PVMers who don't know how to defend themselves, I think.
Yeah, and how cool of a dynamic would that be? Where you, as the predator, are stalking the larger prey. That would be so cool if there were some multipliers on, hey, if you see a lower level, fucking run. Because if you die to them, you're going to lose double the amount, you know, let's say. If you're,
yeah.
How cool would that be? And again, this all can be very simplified and streamlined if it's a PvP coffer system where everything is just GP value now, where if you die, it's not the end of the world. You haven't lost everything. You haven't gotten stuff stolen from your bank to pay off the thing. It's like, no, this is all just going through a coffer.
Yeah, I just would be wary of the fact that we could inject so much more GP into the game.
Well, it wouldn't.
That could be a GP sink as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you take the deep dive where Vader and I are talking about it, we're talking about one. This is not acting like a death's coffer, so it would be purely you are inserting GP. There's no GP that's being created out of thin air. You have to actually put the raw GP in there, and then there's just GP to GP transfers. So there's not gold being generated by any means. It's all just gold that was already in the game that's being transferred. And then we thought it would be interesting to have a 10% additional fee. So gold actually is leaving the game. So there'd be a 10% additional fee that maybe 5% of it's lost. That's just completely deleted from the game, but then the other 5% is given to the PKer for, you know, just dealing with like the coffer. So it could be a GP sync. It's very easy to implement these types of things, and there isn't any of that worry about GP being introduced, because it's not something where you can just sacrifice an item for a GE value of it. It is purely you have to insert GP, and then that's just how it works, and then you get GP.
But what if you don't do that?
So
what if you just don't insert any GP and you go to wilderness and die with all your gear and you don't lose anything, and the PKer doesn't get anything out of it?
Yeah, so that would be where there is an opt-in and opt-out system. It's inevitable for there to be an opt-in, opt-out, because if you don't supply your coffer, what's going to happen? Then it would go back to the old rules of your loot key is just everything you lost. And who knows, maybe there's actually incentive for you as a player to not opt in just because you don't want to die to somebody lower level than you and lose, you know, potentially 50% more if there is that scaling. I'm not saying we need to go down that route. In the conversation we're having, we didn't even talk about a sort of scaling system of dying to a lower level person, which is actually fascinating now that I've kind of talked about it with you. But
yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, but if you're not opted in, you simply, well, one, if you're an Iron Man that kills a main account that is not opted in, you are just going to get their loot key that has all their stuff on it, and you'll just have to destroy it at that point. Which sucks for the Iron Man, but at the same point, it also sucks for the PVMer that didn't opt in, because one, he's not opted in, so everything's way more inconvenient for him. He just died and respawned with nothing. So now he has to re-gear, where he could have just been opted into the system and then just been right back into the action, having a lot more fun. And if you introduce this 10% additional fee, opting in means that you're actually making more money and wasting less time selling these items off to the Grand Exchange, meaning just more profit. So there's such a huge incentive for everybody to opt in, for the simplicity, for the convenience, for the extra money that you're going to be making. But there's still the freedom to fully just not opt in if you don't want. And you're going to be at a disadvantage, but so are the Iron Man. If you want to just spite Iron Man, that, first of all, I think it's very silly and almost pathetic for a PKer to spite vote not, or like to spite not opt in just in case just in case an Iron Man kills him. Like, that is beta shit right there. If any PKer were to do that, like, you can just laugh and point fingers at them, because it's like, you're really scared that an Iron Man's going to kill you. That's pathetic.
I think that's inevitable. Like, if I would have made an Iron Man and did that, I think a lot of people would just be wary of that and would not just opt in. Just to make him mad and get reactions out of him, and he would make more content and he would make more money.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a really fascinating concept, and I think we've tied up most of the loose ends, if not all. Again, going back to the Vader conversation, we were trying to look at every possible situation where this could be broken or manipulated in some bad way, and I think most of it, especially because it's now just GP to GP transfers, there's no sort of items being automatically sold or anything like that. It fully has simplified it, and it makes, again, I think it will just create a way more vibrant wilderness that has so much more potential for the future.
Yeah, I hope that they find a way to implement any good ideas from the community to make that work, because that's one of the pillars that really need to be addressed.
What other video concepts do you have in mind for the future? Because you did say earlier, a lot of your game time is just spent kind of capturing different video elements for, video ideas you have. What is your next video going to be about, and just in the future as well? Do you have any other video essay ideas? And is that what you're going to mostly be focused on, just video essays?
I'm not really sure. I'm trying to figure it out. Well, I think this video essay just worked so well, and I was not expecting it, like, by any means. I was expecting to get, like, at most 500 views, and now it's at 21K or 22K. And that just blew my mind. I was not expecting that, and I didn't even know how to manage it. Like, all of the comments and stuff, I didn't know how to view at analytics. And it's not my first time making content for YouTube, because I was always on and off with it, and mostly it was just old school RuneScape or RuneScape that gave me the spark to make content. So yeah, next video should be something abstract as this one was, but it also has a theme within the game and outside the game. So it's kind of the same vibe of a video essay, I guess. But I will be going to experiment with more ideas, like maybe 5 things old school RuneScape did that still makes the game do this, or I don't know. 10 things that old school RuneScape does that other MMOs don't do, but still giving it that twist that only I can do. Because I think I have created this really nice style of mine with just one video.
Yeah, I mean, listen, first of all, I don't know what the time frame is to making these videos, but I've just been kind of itching for another Espada video at this point, which is funny because literally it's just been one time, but now I'm like, I mean, I also watched your sailing video as well, but like the first one, I'm just like, okay, I need more of this, like, ASAP. How long do these projects take you on average to come up with an idea and to fully script it and then to publish it?
Scripting takes maybe a week or 2, depending on how difficult of a concept I'm looking at. I have a couple planned, so it's not that bad. I have one scripted and the one that I'm working on. And the thing is, I do record and edit at the same time. And if you see the time frame between the sailing video and that one, it's like 3 months.
Yeah.
And it's 3 months of editing and capturing footage and making the video, rewriting, re-recording, making sure that it's all coherent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a long time, especially when you are doing it for the first time. So I think the sailing video was just like dipping my toes back into it again, seeing if I still got it, if I can use Premiere and find the right songs and all of that, if I can make the thumbnails. And people are getting so crazy good at making videos and thumbnails and titles and everything. I just didn't know what to do. I had like this kind of paralysis at the beginning.
Well, you've done a great job. I can't lie. I mean, I think you totally nailed the thumbnail. The fact that I clicked it, I'm very picky. So you nailed it with that. And the title is great.
The more I look at it, and the more I think it's wrong. Like, I don't think that was the right packaging for it.
Still worked though. Still worked. So it never.
Yeah. It definitely got the click, but I don't know. It might have been clickbaity, but the analytics are pretty good for it. Like the retention time is 40%, I think. It shouldn't be that bad by standards of this kind of content, but yeah, it performed quite good. Over 100 comments.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Excluding my replies, that's great for a nobody.
How many?
Almost 1K likes.
Yeah, how many new subscribers did you get from that video?
Well, I think from the sailing video, I got 5 subscribers. And I know why. I really know that I did not do it that well, but this one was up to 511 and still counting. Not as much as initially when it took off, but yeah, it's
trickling in.
A couple hundred. Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah. So when you say, a video that's the 5 things that other MMOs do, like what in your head right now? I mean, I imagine you're already working on a video concept. Are you free to leak some of the like details of what you're going to be talking about on it as a sneak peek?
Yeah. It's well, even if someone copies it, I think I can give a spin on it that it's completely unique. At least no one's in my head and is going to make it exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Or at least I have some advantages, maybe from the visuals or the overall vibe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think I'm pretty confident. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So the next one that is coming out is, well, I can say 2 things, 2 hints: Goblin House and the ladder. That is old school RuneScape.
The ladder.
I'm not going to. Yeah.
Okay. The Goblin House, though, like in Lumbridge, like across the river, like that thing. That's what we're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. That's my emotional lever.
That's the sneak peek we get. I'm excited.
Yeah. And the next one, the one after that I'm still thinking about it. I have not scripted it yet. It's about how old school RuneScape is actually keeping the exploration aspect uniquely to itself, while other MMOs have hubs and other things that make the game brain dead or maybe hold the hand of a player. So why old school RuneScape is so unique in a way. And I will be looking at it from the exploration angle.
Interesting. That's going to be cool.
World exploration angle. But I'm still not sure if it's a strong enough one.
Yeah, I mean,
it takes a lot of time to come up with strong concepts that are not just cool ideas, but actually have some meaning behind it. Because overall, my mission is just to explore what makes old school RuneScape the game that it is, so charming and amazing. Because every video is going to be like a love letter to the game in the end. Like, we all have the criticisms about the game, but I just love it. Yeah. I grew up with it. I came back to it multiple times, and I consider it my home and my comfortable place. And I will keep just doing these digital love letters in video format for the game.
I'm totally with you, man. Like that's just when I think about a world that I'd be living in without old school RuneScape, it sounds depressing. Like as funny and
Yeah.
as like nerdy and as silly and trivial as that sounds, it's like my life has revolved around this game, especially as a content creator, that the game dissolving or not being here, it just sounds depressing. And especially because like when I try to play other games, none of them feel like RuneScape. They all feel temporary. They all feel like just okay, play the game, get over with it, and then get bored of it. Like truly get bored of it. Like I have no interest now. Old school RuneScape is like the complete opposite. It's this ever like I always want to log in. I always want to make some progress, and there's just that deep satisfaction of this endless sort of progress that you get, and endless ways to play, and endless journeys to take, and routes to take, and it's just amazing. And it speaks to me so much more, I think, than the average player because I have so much time to sink into it, which is another luxury I have as a content creator, is just being able to spend a large portion of my days just sinking my teeth into it more and more and grinding. And it's become totally home for me to just enjoy it, do other things on the side, grind, and just feel like I have this secondary little like life form that's I'm kind of like training on the side. And it hits different than any other game, and it would suck to lose it.
Yeah. And you're living my dream. I really would love to make it and be somewhat successful as a content creator, and I hope for that a lot.
I think you have what it takes. You are on the you mentioned Theory Wise earlier. Theory Wise is somebody that popped out of the woodworks like a year and a half ago, seemingly. And his channel's exploding, and he's very recognized across the community now. And he's doing video essays just like you. In fact, I would put like your video essay, in my opinion, you've only done one. So he's obviously done a ton of them. So it eventually gets to the point where you're kind of just thinking of ideas, like what are the best ideas. But like yours captured my attention so thoroughly that if you do spend the time to polish and to just make a beautifully presented video, I really do feel like you have what it takes to become one of those like really well renowned like video essay creators in the old school scene, especially if you keep like that same sort of format. I think what you have right now is a really excellent formula, and I think anybody right now that wants to go check out your channel, obviously we'll have your links down there so they can just click on your video and just give it a watch themselves. I think they'll also be surprised with just the sheer quality for, especially like technically your second video, but your first real like video essay. So I don't know, man, follow your dreams, because this is, I have a lot of hope for you. And honestly, just our conversation so far has gotten me excited about, potentially like you going on other podcasts. I know Theorywise has his podcast Fireside, and other people have theirs. And if you have ideas that are worth sharing in this game, people want to hear from you. So like that will just create more and more exposure. So there's a lot of competition on YouTube, but I think if you keep up your quality like you are doing, there's an easy way forward in my view.
Yeah. I guess that the game allows for crazy world building, and you can really like translate that into video, and that's what I try to do. But yeah, as you said, there's a lot of competition, and you can like, I guess you can look into the game and look into it from any angle, because there are so many content creators. Like you said, Theorywise does video essays, but he's doing it in a way different way from me.
Mm-hmm.
He's analyzing, or maybe Cube Analyst. I don't know if you ever saw a video of him, or maybe Flipping Old School.
Yep.
All those videos focus on the specific details of the mechanics or things, while I have another lever to pull, and I do it in my own way, which is looking at the game and trying to world build, storytell, while still staying kind of coherent. I don't think that I did that perfectly in my video, but yeah, I think that was a good go at it, and the formula works, as you said.
Yeah. It was fresh too. It felt like the way you started it wasn't the way I thought you were going to end it. And I think that also captured my attention more and more. I think you kind of had some shifts throughout that kind of kept things paced very well, and then also introduced new concepts and ideas as you went forward in the video. And it just got me thinking of so much more. So I think it's you presenting an idea and not telling the whole thing, kind of just presenting it and letting the audience be able to create their own sort of conclusion to what you're saying. And I think it was masterful. So keep that up. And you know what? I can't lie as well. This is just my own personal selfishness, but I would love it if you took a deep dive into the lore of, gnomes and dwarves and elves and stuff like that. I got so interested when you just gave that little snapshot of like, why do they have a huge fortress here? Like, what is the reason for it? And like, I obviously could just do some like wiki lore search and stuff, but if you present it in a video essay type that's longer form and you go into the details of it, that would be so cool. I would be so into that. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I might, but I don't think I'm not still fully established. I didn't pick my own niche within this old school RuneScape niche too much, or within the video essay niche. But I don't think I'm that much of a lore guy. Matter of fact, in this video, I just took a bird's eye view of a few key things that stand out to me and that stimulate my thoughts from the lore, which are some of the areas of the game, some of the populations and cultures. And I loved those things and I wanted to share, but I went on with the video and added more and more stuff, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I will be necessarily going to make lore videos, and you will see that in my next video because it's basically zero lore. But
okay.
yeah,
Well,
I might.
I think I'll be impressed regardless, but that's interesting to hear because I thought you were doing it just great. So that's surprising to hear that you're like kind of avoiding it in some way, or you don't feel like you're the guy for it.
Yeah, because lore is really complicated. I got a lot of, quite a few of negative comments about my lore accuracy or not knowing about what I'm talking about, which is absolutely correct. I'm in no way, shape, or form a lore guy, and yeah, I think it's really ambiguous because I would be framing it in a way I want, and I don't really want to be manipulating the game's lore just to make
fair
content for it.
Hey, I mean, I appreciate how self-aware you are and how you're just kind of letting these criticisms roll off your back. Because in my view, I'm not a lore guy either, but your framing of it, your perspective of things, it still was super, super entertaining. And I think it still has value to it, even if you're shifting what the quote unquote official like narrative of the story is. I think there's always different interpretations you can add. And so I would say if you want to do it, and it sounds like you're more focused on other areas of the game, which is fair, but if you want it, I would say go for it. And just if people criticize, I would say ultimately that's only in your favor because it's just extra interaction. But I feel like you're not somebody that's just gonna lie. You're gonna tell it the way you want to tell it, and it's not like you're not trying to like manipulate it maliciously or anything. You're just sharing how you see it, which is totally fair to do. And anybody that's criticizing, I just think is one, it's just your perspective on it, but it's also, again, extra engagement. And I think there's more discussion that can be had when people do share different perspectives in the comment section. So I don't know.
I could become like no monkey of lore, hot takes and lore.
Yeah.
I don't know, kind of a new niche.
Seriously though, I mean, there is an area for that, but again, do what you, obviously I don't need to tell you, but do what you are feeling like is the most interesting to you. So I
will be scouting.
Yeah. And I'm excited. I have have you in my subscription box. So as soon as you publish, I'm going to be the first one to watch.
Oh, thank you.
I want to touch on two different, but in the same sort of theme thing to kind of wrap up the conversation, which is what concerns you most about the direction of the game, or like what are the pitfalls that you know for sure we should avoid, or maybe just things that you do feel like would be the wrong route to take old school in your opinion? Again, this is all subjective, but I want to hear in your view what would be a devastating route to take that would lead to a dead end potentially that Jagex could realistically potentially make.
I guess this would be kind of a summary of this podcast, because we have talked about all of those things. First, and one of the most personal ones, probably the lore side of things, or if they start taking the game out of the fifth age, I guess that would be heartbreaking and could make the game worse in a way, unless we find a way to make it extremely good and we forget that fifth age was even a thing. Other things, probably escalating things too far, like, as you said, attachments to armor, different auras and stuff like that. As long as we keep it simple, that would be really cool. This doesn't mean you walk to a certain place, to a certain new area, or you teleport there. You can use whatever the game has, and the game has a lot of stuff to make people reach new areas and make that engaging and fresh and whatnot. But anything that's on paper too overkill, and you have to dedicate a lot of time just to understand how the thing works, I think is not a good way to progress or advance the game further.
That's fair. I always this is a side thing, but I remember in the panel discussions I was having, one of the scariest things I could see as being like an option potentially is adding further MTX into the game, or adding like other
absolutely
ways of, even if it doesn't immediately mean buying XP or buying gear, but buying cosmetics could be a very, very bad move to make. And even if that initially doesn't make that much of a difference, I think it's just setting us up for some devastating microtransaction slippery slope in the future. So
so I think that's one of the things that they are not really going to do, because they had some experiences and a lot of feedback about that. I'm looking at you, Twitch, skin tone.
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
so I don't think they're going to be doing anything like that unless their owners start to push for that and they have no other ways to just do it.
And then on the flip side, what most excites you about the future of the game? This is a very broad question, but in general, I think we both are optimists about the game, and I just want to hear like where, and again, just sort of pinpoint a little bit more, like where do you even see the game in the next 5-10 years? Do you see us still in a thriving game? Can it still last with the same formula we've been using, still in the fifth age, still having moderate power increases, but nothing devastating? And do you think there's any immediate things that we do need to address in order to maintain a really healthy looking old school?
I think the game is going to be alive forever. I really hope that, and I believe that it's possible, as we just saw for 15 years a development kind of. If you had a heat map of what's been developed for 15 years, it would be concentrated in one specific area mostly. And I think the devs could, and we as a community could zoom out a little bit and look at the game and in the entirety of a game and see what other things we could approach with the same effort and the same dedication, and fall in love with different aspects of the game. And I think throughout the course of RuneScape, not only old school RuneScape, this shift happened, because I remember back in the day, people loved PvP.
Mm-hmm.
It was the big thing about it. Of course, there was skilling, there was PVM, there was questing, but it wasn't as big as PVM it is right now. It wasn't nothing compared to, well, maybe not nothing compared to PvP, but PvP was really prevalent
Yeah.
and people loved about it. A lot of things, to a point where people went to private servers to just PvP when RuneScape messed it up a little bit. So I think the game has a lot of areas of improvement, and focus could be put into so many things, and the game has a lot of potential to grow in different areas. Two specific things that I'm really excited about. One is, I'm not sure if we are still working on that, but I really hope, is the new client with HD
Oh yeah.
or sort of HD or improved graphics engine, and the Eastern continent.
Mm.
I hope they are working on that, and I hope that it's somewhat within the Asian stereotype of thing,
That would be pretty cool.
and that we can sail to that place for the first time.
Yeah.
And that we have to repeat that for a couple of times until we get a better way to getting there.
Mm-hmm. Varlamore feels a lot
I'm
more
really
Americanized, like North and South America kind of that vibe of like jungles and stuff.
Yeah.
Except for the Coliseum, I guess. Coliseum's a little bit out of place, but everything else feels a little bit more like that's like, I don't know. But again, I would love to see the more like, yeah, I don't know, Eastern sort of themed stuff over on there. So that would be amazing. There's also so many islands that they're still planning on introducing as well. So
yeah, and that's awesome. I really love that.
Yeah, I'm with you pretty much fully. I mean, I want to believe this game has so much more life in it. It really is just a matter of the community always calling out Jagex on their shit, you know? So if they make a blunder, we as a community screech and over and over until things are changed. And I think that's a really good thing about our community, and the fact that we are just so passionate and we don't want to lose. I think is because the EOC happened and old school was birthed. I think a lot of us, I wasn't even there at that time technically, but like, I mean, I played in 2004 to 2007, but then I quit in 2007. So I know what it's like to quit this game when an update is just so terrible, like removing the wilderness and removing free trade. And I feel like the community, luckily we've gone through those experiences together, and it's like we don't want to see this game crash and burn again. So we're very outspoken and we just call out Jagex on anything, and I think that culture needs to be maintained. I don't think we should be apathetic or numbed to the game's direction. We should always be actively trying to like shape it the way we want as a community to shape it, which is a big reason I've been trying to do the panel discussions, and I've just loved doing the Sae Bae cast for the last 5.5 years, is just being able to keep the conversation alive. And the conversations are always, regardless of, you know, what I'm doing, there's always conversations going on online about it. But I think the video aspect and the podcasting just helps bring those ideas and stuff more to life. So I'm really happy with the sprouting of video essays from more people and podcasting from more people. I think it's all just good stuff to get us more and more in touch and in tune with the game's identity, and to like keep it old school for the next decades. That'd be amazing to see.
Yeah, and I think your content is great. It fits in a very specific and amazing space of YouTube, because it's true that your content doesn't make things to happen in game, but it gives awareness to people of problems, and that's how I sort of started thinking deeper about the game, by watching content and seeing people talking about it deeper, past guides and stuff like that. And this is a really fascinating space to be in, and I love your stuff. I love that you have been so constant about it for all these years. You had a lot of people on your cast, you have a lot of panels, and I don't think you do any other content, do you?
I mean, I've definitely dabbled. I started initially with Twitch streaming back in January 2019. That's when I started the whole content creation thing, was the very beginning of 2019. And I was only a streamer, very, very slow growth. And then I started doing rambles on YouTube, which were just occasional like hour-long skilling method things in silence with music playing. This is just very basic. It's like YouTube for me was just a side project of just like throw up my slop on there, and just if people want to watch it, they can watch it. I had no intention of like making anything really of YouTube. But then I decided to do the podcasting thing, which was not intended on being anything past a few episodes of just talking with some people. But then it ended up being like 280 some episodes now later.
Yeah.
And I've just maintained it, which has been a huge blessing in my life because it's helped support me and helped me to keep doing it. And also just gotten me to open up. I'm pretty, I don't know. Like I feel like I'm just an anxious guy. I don't really think I'm antisocial. I'm just anxious. So getting out of my comfort zone and being able to talk with some stranger online for 2 to 3 hours has been really a skill and like a cool thing to be able to like maintain for years. So that's been nice for me because I do just spend a lot of time inside. But yeah,
but you're a great host. Let me tell you that.
Thank you.
I think it started as a, well, how to say it, anxiety thing, but now you're a master of it. You're a great host. You know how to make people open up, warm them up, and how to make them talk, and that's amazing. You have talked with game devs. You have talked with very famous people from old school Runescape YouTube space, and that is crazy. That's crazy to think about it. And being here for me as a nobody, it's a really amazing thing. I never thought that a thing like this would happen, and you just wanted to talk about it, and that's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's been an incredible conversation, and I hope to honestly, I would love to have you back on it at some point. I totally imagine myself watching a future video of yours where you capture some other idea I hadn't really thought about, or you frame it in a unique way, and I'm just going to get you right back on.
Absolutely.
And even, you know, maybe throw in somebody like TheoryWise or some other guest on with us, and we can do like a little 3-way conversation, just talking about the game and how we see it. Because again, like this is my like bread and butter, is like just talking with people. The panels have been so fun. Those have been relatively new. It's mostly just been kind of rambles and casts, and then occasional guides, and I have like a hardcore series kind of going. But this is like the sweet nectar I get of just talking, and people get to listen to it. So
yeah,
Espada, this has been an incredible conversation. I've loved every minute of it, and I'm so glad that you were willing to come on, and with such short notice as well. I feel like I just reached out. We planned this almost immediately. So thank you for coming on, and I'm going to have your links down below for those still watching.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I had a blast too.
Awesome. Well, guys, if you've enjoyed this, you're definitely going to want to subscribe to Espada's YouTube channel. So click on that link down in the description, give him a subscription, and watch his latest video if you haven't already. It's a banger. And I think if you guys are in that sort of video essay space, the fact that you're listening to this conversation right now means you will appreciate his video. So go check it out and give him a little sub for me. And Espada, I'm sure in the next little bit, I'll invite you back on and we can have some further discussion. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.